The battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hey guys, welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and we've got Kevin Wilson with us.
Howdy.
Hey Kevin, how's it going?
Oh, living the dream.
Yeah. Today very much feels like Monday for me. I don't know. Did you have yesterday off?
I did have yesterday off, so yeah, it also feels like Monday to me. It's a little bit weird, but I'm here in the office today doing the show, not at my home studio.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because me and my staff, we got together this morning and we're like, today kind of feels like a Monday, but you know what day it really feels like? It feels like Friday. Like, let's just cancel the rest of the week. Let's take Friday. Let's just do that. It seems like a good idea.
Sounds like a nice thing. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's in the cards for me.
No, not for me either, unfortunately. But, it's nice to think about, nice to wish about. So I know that over the weekend, it sounds like you got a chance to go to the protests, at least one of them, if not
I did.
multiple. And I think that we should definitely be talking about Daniel Prude today. I think that's going to be a really important topic.
No, I mean, definitely here in the Rochester region, that's all over the news. You guys probably, if you're listening to, the news update before our show on WYSL, you definitely heard that. But yeah, no, we spent all of Thursday, most of Thursday's episode talking about what happened with Daniel Prude and what we knew up to that point. And of course, immediately following the revelations that this was something that happened back on March 23rd. And then Daniel Prude died on March 30th. They said he died because of asphyxiation related to the restraints that the police had used. I was curious what you thought of that, since you've had experience as an EMT. Like what your thoughts are on that situation, what makes sense, your thoughts on spit hoods. And then maybe we'll talk about the protests a bit too. I was able to only attend the one last night, and yeah, I mean, I know some of them you may have seen on the news. You may have seen some of the stuff that happened at Oxenstone. We'll talk about that. But let's talk about the thing itself, since you and I haven't had a chance to talk about that either.
Yeah, no, so I got a chance to see the body cam footage as it was released. And, of course, I was getting calls from tons of different people from, all over the area, kind of, hey, did you see this? Do you think there's going to be violence? Do you agree with what happened? Do you think the police were wrong? Do you think the police were right? How do you feel about this? Is this excessive force? A lot of questions. And I'll say, especially, like, I'm going to answer and, like, talk through some of these, but I'm not necessarily qualified to, because, I don't know what the current or even previous RPD policy was on restraints. We can talk a little bit about what I did as an EMT, which I will say is very, very different. And I can talk a little bit about a martial arts instructor that I had for a number of years, and personal defense instructor for many years, and kind of the restraint techniques taught in that aspect too, which were also pretty different compared to what I saw in the body cam footage. But I don't know. I had somebody who was not a police officer themselves, who was friends with police officers, and said that, no, they did things by the book. That's how they're supposed to do them. And my response to that is, if that's by the book, and if that's what they were supposed to do, we need to reevaluate the book.
Yeah.
We need to reevaluate the standards and the processes. If they were indeed doing what they were taught in the academy, if that is indeed the standard that they are expected to follow today, which I don't know if it is, I don't know if it isn't, I think that we need to take a real hard look at that because um, when I watched the footage, I was horrified. Just step by step, play by play, and I guess we could talk about that. Um, we could talk about what the footage looked like because you see this body cam footage. This was on one of the RPD officers who responded to this call, and you see a naked man on like in the street basically, already handcuffed. I don't know how he got handcuffed and just kind of left there, but he's there, he's naked in the street with handcuffs on, and it's snowing. So it's pretty cold here in Rochester, especially when it's snowing. So that alone really gave me this feeling of like, whoa, like why is there a naked guy on the ground handcuffed? Um, and there's no like blanket there or anything like that. Like definitely as an EMT, like getting a blanket to somebody was really important, even in the not cold months, because when somebody's having some sort of health crisis, um, we had so many blankets on the rig. We would always make sure that we get a blanket on somebody to make sure that they're just comfortable, you know. So this is a situation where somebody's there um, without a blanket and it's snowing. So that to me right away was kind of like something's wrong here, at least from the perspective of care, you know. And I understand that law enforcement don't necessarily have that perspective. Their perspective, it can be of care, but in an aggravated situation, that's probably not the first thing coming to their mind. So that was kind of like the first thing that jumped out to me. There was of course like screaming and yelling. Like clearly this guy was disturbed. He was not in his right state of mind. He wasn't healthy. That's for sure. Um, and so I will say that when riding the ambulance, I've done a number of what we would call MHA calls, which is mental hygiene arrest. Um, Typically, it was people who are drunk. So somebody calls in, somebody's like very intoxicated and combative. We've had the police always show up to these calls, and they're there to assist. We usually don't even come in until the police say it's okay. So we'll be, on standby, like around the corner or something, or closer to the scene till the police say it's okay. Um, and there have been times that we've used what we would call a spit sock, but and I don't know if this has changed. So I was trying to think of the last time I rode on an ambulance, and I want to say it was 2014, but it might have been 2016. I can't remember. I do know it was an even year. The spit socks we had were transparent and clear. They kind of looked like pantyhose, if you will. So at no time would the patient ever be in a situation where they couldn't see what was going on. And that's the only style that I had ever seen. So when I saw in this video, they put what looked like a plastic bag over his head. That really, that certainly freaked me out because I didn't even know what it was, even having used them before. I had never seen that type where you can't see out of it. And like as I watched them kind of like approach and put that over his head, I was like thinking to myself before I saw the next part of the footage, I was thinking that's going to really escalate this situation. Like you have a patient, or at least what I perceive to be a patient, the police perceive to be a problem, which neither of us are wrong in that situation, I think. So you see somebody who's clearly struggling, somebody who is not in the right state of mind, and then you take away their vision. It's just a really good way to escalate a situation. And like as I'm seeing them approaching him like that, I see the bag go and I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be bad. And sure enough, he starts like freaking out. He starts yelling, like all of this stuff. And I couldn't help but think that, like, I've never had that experience with any of the patients we've dealt with the clear ones, because they can see, it feels weird being on their face if they even realize there's something on their face. But when you take somebody's vision away during a time of crisis, like that just seems like a bad thing to me. So, those are my first, just kind of my gut feelings, like looking at it, going into the situation, like starting to have this discussion about either bad conduct or bad policy. I'm not sure which one it is yet. I think we'll find out as more information comes out. But we're going to take just a brief break here. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you the rest of my gut feeling about watching this body cam footage. And then we should talk about this just in a lot of depth. So we're going to take a break here. You're listening to Radio Free New York. We'll be back in a moment.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Escape from the everyday to a getaway at Woodcliff Hotel and Spa. Woodcliff features elegantly appointed accommodations, creative cuisine, themed suites, full-service spa Elan, and is Rochester's best venue for outdoor wedding receptions overlooking the city skyline. Woodcliff Hotel and Spa, where the experience is extraordinary. Located in Fairport, call 585-381-4000 or visit woodcliffhotelspa.com.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. Got Kevin Wilson here with me. Today is Tuesday. It's our talk of the town. My town being Rochester, Kevin's too. And I think probably one of the number one most talked about things that's happening right now, not just locally, but this is kind of ballooned out nationally at this point. is Daniel Prude's death. And I before we hit break, I was telling you guys about the body cam footage and my gut reactions to it. But Kevin, do you want to give them? I realize we didn't really give any background information on kind of what caused this or what happened. Do you have kind of the timeline of events before I talk a little bit more about what I saw?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just again, the timeline of events basically is that uh, we'll just start with Daniel Prude was in the hospital for mental health treatment. He was released. Now there's some controversy there too, whether or not he was released sooner than he ought to have been. But I know that's a tough issue. That's really
That's very
it's
hard.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a hard issue, and it's I don't know if I have anything to add to that discussion, but with that he was released. He was still having some issues, and that's when you see he was out naked in the snow in March, running around. He apparently had traces of PCP in the system too, and so yeah, and because of the incident that happened, the police restraints that were used on him, that the police used on him, he died from that 7 days later. So he had stopped breathing for a few minutes on the scene, and then I guess because his body had been deprived of oxygen for so long, he wasn't able to recover from that. That's why he died 7 days later.
Now, did his brother called the police, right? It wasn't like
Yeah.
some person, seeing him outside or anything. It was a family member who was concerned about him. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was his brother who was taking care of him, and it's just awful. No matter what, I feel bad for the family. Wherever you sit with this, if you call the police or you call 911 and you're asking for help with a family member who is going through a crisis, you expect whoever responds to that to help and to make sure that they get your family member to safety. That's what the expectation is. And that didn't happen here. So they called the police thinking that we're gonna get and get my brother back, and we're gonna give him the help he needs, and yeah, that's how it ended up. And so yeah, no family deserves to go through that, and I think that's one of the main issues that a lot of people are talking about the protests is how do police respond to mental health arrests, and how should we reform that system? But just going on the timeline again, the mayor and the chief of police knew about this almost immediately after, it seems. The mayor's saying that she was told that it was just a death because of basically a drug overdose, is what she had said.
Yeah.
And the chief of police, for his part, Laurent Singletary, he opened up an internal investigation immediately and gave information to Sandra Dorley to start a criminal investigation. Just hey, there might be something here, and he handed that off immediately. They didn't, to their credit, they didn't try to cover that part up. They didn't say anything in public about it, which a lot of people are upset with, and understandably so. But they did pass that along to the DA, and then it was taken out of the DA's hands and given to the New York State Attorney General. And the Attorney General right now, where that is they've been doing the investigation since then, and they have they're going to be impaneling a grand jury to see if the grand jury wants to bring charges for the officers involved, the officers directly involved, and the bystanders as well, the officers who are around.
Okay. Now, do you think that this is going to be one of those cases where qualified immunity is going to be coming up?
So not for the criminal charges. The criminal charges, qualified immunity doesn't necessarily apply, but for civil suits, yeah.
Okay.
I think that this is probably going to apply in this case. And again, qualified immunity is basically where you're not able to bring agents of the government to civil court to sue them for monetary damages unless you're able to prove that constitutional rights were violated in that specific way in the past, and that there was a judgment based on that. So unless there's another case where this exact same thing happened, and there might be, and a judge came to a decision that compensation was owed, that the Prude family won't be able to take these officers to court for those types of damages.
Yeah, and I gotta say, the whole situation is just it's just sad and disturbing, and I would say that as somebody who has responded to, I won't say this specific call, but as somebody who has responded to mental health calls, mental hygiene calls, multiple times, and yeah, sometimes those situations can be really sketchy and scary, like 100%. But I've also seen family members struggle with specific things, and so for me, it's kind of I don't know, it's just a scary thought to think that you could be calling the police for help, or maybe you're calling 911 and you're not even necessarily intending to be calling the police. You're calling 911 because that's the catch-all, and you're thinking somebody's going to come help my sick relative, and then something like this happens that looks really bad. It certainly freaks you out a little bit. Like, I don't know, Kevin, how do you feel? Do you feel like you want to call 911 now when a family member is maybe acting out or something like that? Like, how's that feel?
No, I mean, to be blunt, I've kind of studied this issue a lot, and calling 911 in a case with a mental hygiene call can be risky. That people who suffer from mental illnesses, and 1 in 5 people do, they're pretty likely to be hurt by police. Just because some folks who are going through crisis don't understand the situation. They don't really understand what's going on, and they're likely to act out in a way that will get police to react and to hurt them in the process. And we see a lot of cases like this. And it's easy to brush over this stuff because you're like, oh, well, they're acting nuts, so like the police just had to do what they have to do to keep people safe. But we also know that in organizations that do mental health care and other social service organizations is that are able to de-escalate and restrain people who are going through crisis safely at a much higher rate than police officers. And if they mess up and actually hurt someone in that process, they're held liable for that. They're more likely to lose their jobs, and they're more likely to get sued in that process. So they need to make sure they do it right. Police officers don't have that.
Yeah, and they carry things like malpractice insurance and things like that. So if something bad does happen, somebody did do something that they shouldn't have, they cause some bodily harm or something like that that requires care afterwards, or even results in death, there's like insurance in place to take care of those issues.
Yeah, no, police officers, they're not required to have any professional liability insurance. So if they do something wrong and they hurt someone in the process, since you can't really sue them on the individual level because of qualified immunity, you sue the municipality. So who ends up paying for it? Well, you and
Taxpayers.
I do. Yep. Yeah, it's us. It's the taxpayers who end up paying for it. And in some places, including Rochester, it's very expensive. And there's actually an interesting story out of some California cities where the city itself ended up having to dissolve because they could no longer carry insurance because of the high cost of all the lawsuits from the police brutality settlements that ended up coming out of there. And so it's wild, why wouldn't you shift to a professional liability insurance that each officer has to carry? And that way, if they are constantly messing up and costing insurance companies money, the insurance company would be like, hey, this person's a risk. We don't want to cover this anymore. Get them out.
Yep. Yeah, and then all of a sudden you have the situation where the market is actually demanding better change instead of voters trying to ask for better change but not actually being listened to. Guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you the second half of what I saw in this body cam footage. My initial gut reactions, some personal experiences. We'll talk about that and more on Radio Free New York.
stand up for your freedom. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, and FM 95.5 Spencerport.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center for tonight. We'll be looking at mostly cloudy skies, chance for a brief passing shower. Temps tonight in the 60s. On Wednesday should turn partly to at times mostly sunny. Warm day, maybe a touch more humid. Highs well up into the 80s. On Thursday, some showers, thunderstorms will arrive with temperatures back into the 70s. I'm Rich Canilia on WYSL.
Reminder, the politicians who won't let you visit family members in nursing homes or go to worship in the church of your choice are Democrats. Remember, in November.
It's zero down summer lease special savings now at the all-new Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Anthony Drive off Route 96 in Victor. For a limited time, lease a 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee 4x4, just $309 a month for 42 months. Zero down. Has diamond black crystal pearl coat finish, 10,000 miles per year, MSRP $37,585, must have Grand Cherokee lease and be returning lessee. There's the 2020 Ram 1500 Classic Pickup in bright white clear coat, just $259 a month. Zero down, 42 months, 10,000 miles per year, MSRP $41,290. Must be conquest or returning lessee and use 4 Ram bonus coupons while supplies last. Check the 2020 Jeep Compass 4x4 in glistening white clear coat, just $239 a month. Zero down for 42 months. MSRP $29,345. Must have conquest or returning lessee. On all deals, must have first payment, taxes, and all fees due at signing. And don't forget zero down. Welcome back to the all-new Victor Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 6560 Anthony Drive in Victor. Save big on America's favorite four-wheel drive vehicles.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
As the word tells us that all things are to be done decently and in order, we all have a desire to be more organized. Get Organized has been helping their clients effectively organize their living spaces with custom closets, pantries, garage storage systems, and more for over 30 years. Get Organized can be reached online at www.closetsrochester.com or by phone at 585-223-3646. Get Organized with closetsrochester.com today.
Take it. How's that? Terrific, man. Hold on. Hello.
Honey, it's getting colder. Do we know anyone with a furnace tune-up deal?
What am I going to do, brother?
Get that furnace tune-up from Taylor Heating. Their experts will make sure your furnace will keep singing all through the heating season. Just call 500-HELP.
500-HELP? Now that's a hot number.
I think I'm really getting it, man.
Call Taylor. 500-HELP.
Geneseo Hardware and Rental has a new expanded location on Route 28, east of the village of Geneseo. Over 6,000 square feet with a large selection of plumbing, electrical, home and garden, and much more. Geneseo Hardware offers Valspar paint, a wide selection of rental items, plus screen and window repair. Get personalized service at the new, bigger location. Geneseo Hardware and Rental, Route 28 next to Wegmans Plaza. Visit geneseo-rental.com.
My name is Shannon Avery, and I'm a team member at Tom Walls Avon. I'll take the extra time to hand bread the haddock fillet on your haddock dinner and serve it with just-made coleslaw. Will you join us with your family?
Tom Walls. You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. Got Kevin Wilson here with me. We're talking about Daniel Prude's death here in Rochester, New York, back in March. The body cam footage came out, a little under a week ago. And I shared with you guys in the beginning of the show kind of the first chunk of body cam footage that I'd watched, my gut reactions as somebody who has been an EMT, who has worked on MHA calls, who has dealt with patients like that and taking them to the hospital, sometimes with, mental health diagnoses, sometimes people who are just intoxicated or on drugs, and just how what we did, and I'm about, I would say, 4 to 6 years out of doing this type of work, and so standards can change, processes can change, equipment and products can change very quickly. So this information I have might be a little dated, but just I'm gonna share that experience with you and kind of my gut feelings as I watched this footage happen. So where we left off was them putting a spit sock over his head, and I was just kind of sharing with you guys that I've used those before. I've used those on this type of call, but they were clear. They look kind of like a skin colored, like a light skin colored, like pantyhose type material. And when I saw them put that white one over his head, I was kind of surprised. I was kind of shocked. Like it almost looked like a plastic grocery store bag at first. I then realized later what it was. But I couldn't imagine being sick the way he was, sitting there naked in the street with the snow on, obviously being very disturbed, very aggravated. He's shouting at the police officers, and then losing vision. Now, the officers, of course, they say, well, he was spitting and stuff, and that's why they put that on that. Yeah, and I agree.
They said he was telling people that he had COVID too.
Yes. But when you listen to the audio, they were kind of like making fun of that. They did not believe that he had COVID. You could hear them chuckling and joking between each other, saying, "Oh yeah, he says he's got COVID." Like, well, they weren't taking that seriously. But to be honest, they probably should have. They probably should have been taking that seriously. And it didn't seem that they were. So they put this spit sock over him. He starts freaking out. And ultimately what ends up happening, which is probably like the just most horrific and scariest part of this whole thing, because remember, this guy's already handcuffed. His hands are already pinned behind his back. What you see in the footage is this officer gets on top of him with both hands on his like head and the back of his neck, and not leaning on him, like laying on top of him with his head, like his entire force of his body just like pressing down. And that to me was just like it literally looked like somebody was doing a push-up on this guy, but using his head as the ground. And it was just a terrible, terrible thing to watch happen. And I've never seen somebody restrained that way. Maybe that's how they're taught in the academy. Maybe that's standardized procedure. It seemed like way too much force. Just in my opinion, as I was watching this, and I actually had the opportunity to see this. I saw this video without any context, so I didn't have any predetermined bias. So I pulled up the video. I saw it because somebody said, "Hey, did you see the body cam footage that just got released?" And I wasn't familiar with it, so I was like, "No, I didn't." They're like, "You should really watch it. This is important." So I pulled it up. I watched it. I got the backstory later, but I gotta tell you, I mean, I've never. I don't know. It looked pretty bad. I mean, Kevin, what did you think when you saw that? Did that?
Yeah, I I mean, obviously, I'm coming at this with a less informed opinion than you, but yeah, no, it didn't. It looked pretty bad to me as well, and I'm like, how would they not? You know, he was already handcuffed on the ground, you know, bag over his head and everything too. Like, what? Why was this extra force even necessary? I didn't quite understand, you know, like how they couldn't get the situation under control more effectively. So
And-
yeah, go ahead.
And typically on the ambulance, and there was clearly an ambulance there, there's usually like a flat board that has straps on it that you could put. It's not typically meant for this type of restraint. It's more for immobilizing people during like a car accident or something severe. You know, where you want to keep the spine straight, you want to keep their neck straight, you don't want anything to move at all during transport. But that type of backboard device, I mean, he was already on the ground, you know, his hands are pinned behind his back, you know, and I don't want to speculate what could have been done instead because I obviously wasn't there, but that just seemed like a much more appropriate use of equipment because it will keep you immobile. I mean, it's got like seatbelt straps on it that they tighten down. And if you're in one of those things, you're not moving at all. It's designed to keep you from moving and keep you safe at the same time, give you an appropriate airway, you know, the whole everything. So that was kind of like my feeling, my just first look at this. And other people might come out and might say things differently. I will say at the very end, when they started asking him questions, he wasn't responding anymore. I'm guessing he was unconscious. He wasn't breathing anymore. And, you know, the EMT or whoever was there, you know, was kind of like assuming that he's dead at this point. And she says something like, oh, it's not your guy's fault. You know, you had to do what you had to do to protect yourselves. That just felt awful because I'm like, this guy's sitting on the ground handcuffed with a bag on his head. Like, what threat did he cause at that point? I get he was screaming. He was saying things that were aggressive, but he was not really able to do anything at that point. He couldn't see, he couldn't move. You know, maybe he could get himself off the ground, but clearly it's pretty easy for them to just put him right back on the ground. Yeah. I don't think
Definitely
he posed a
doesn't have
threat.
weapon on him, you know. That's
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so because of this, though, what has happened is, of course, there have been a series of protests that started. You know, the day this came out, which was it Wednesday? It came out, but stuff started really popping up Thursday. And yeah, so there's been a number of marches. So I know Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, various marches. Some of which you know, you've probably seen a bit of on the news. You know, contrary to what some of my friends who are outside the area have seen, it's not like rioters have taken over the city. This is what someone texted me. Heard rioters took over Rochester. No, that's not at all what happened. They're just big protests, and what happened at some of those will, you know, I want to get into it yet, but we'll talk about it after the break because, you know, I think it's important to add context to what happened, who's being jerks, and then why we need to kind of keep our eye on like what the big situation is here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, I got those same messages too. I even had a couple this morning of people saying, hey, just want to check in on you. Looks like Rochester has been overturned, this and that. Like, are you safe? And I was like, no, things are actually, I think, quieter now than they were, was it like 2 months ago? When,
yeah, no,
when things
definitely
were really...
nothing near like the actual riots that happened back in, was it May, June, whenever that was?
Yeah.
No, it's been nothing like that. A handful of jerks. There's been some violence coming from the police side too. But you know, most neighborhoods in Rochester are quiet. Downtown, definitely very noisy. I was there last night. Super noisy. And that's kind of the point. They want to be disruptive to call attention to the issue. I mean, if you live downtown, well, yeah, you heard a bunch of shouts and chants and horns honking.
Yeah,
right
yeah,
in
for
the middle
sure.
of the night.
Well, why don't we do this? We're going to take a break here, and when we come back, I think, Kevin, you should give us your experience at this protest. Tell us what you saw, what you heard, and let's give everybody that first-hand account. So, guys, you're listening to Radio Free New York. We'll be back in a moment.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
If you're looking to market and grow your business, make new business connections, and give back to the community in a meaningful way, consider joining the Greece Regional Chamber of Commerce. We're the largest suburban chamber in Monroe County, and we offer networking, education, marketing, insurance, and advocacy. You do not need to live or work in Greece to join. Our members come from throughout the region. In short, we're better together, and together, we're moving business forward. Visit greecechamber.org or call 585-227-7272 to join today.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We've got Kevin Wilson with us. Kevin was actually at the protests this weekend, or at least one of them. Kevin, why don't you tell us about the protest? Oh, and I'm saying the protest. I'm not telling anybody what protest. The protest specifically protesting the death of Daniel Prude. And we've spent basically the whole show talking about this, talking about the body cam footage and just how it looks, how it's been, what the process has been so far. Kevin, give us your firsthand account at what these protests look like, because it sounds like there's some misconceptions and maybe some misleading information going on.
Yeah, so a couple things about it. You know, again, I attended this protest last night, so by this point, many of the people there had been to several nights. They're a bit more well organized. They have their communication systems down a bit more effectively. You know, so we met over at MLK Park. There's a few people talking there for a few minutes, and then kind of went around down to the front of City Hall. and then people spoke there for a while. And then from City Hall went down to the Public Safety Building, and that's where it's kind of like the police headquarters, basically. And and then everyone kind of sat down over there, and there's some more speeches, including Daniel Prude's brother, some of the organizers, things like that. There's singing and whatnot, so relatively chill mood while I was there. I ended up leaving a little before 10 p.m., and then it's kind of after that at like 10:30ish, the police decided to declare it an unlawful assembly, told everyone to go home. But I don't think like the pepper balls and tear gas and pepper spray and whatnot ended up coming out last night. I don't think. But it was pretty tense for a while.
So at what point, and if you don't know the answer, that's fine. This is probably a good question for, an officer or, somebody in authority. But at what point do they get to say something's an unlawful gathering and then start to use force? Do you know?
So the mayor's declared a curfew of 11 p.m.
Okay.
Now, why they started doing it at 10:30 every night, I don't really know, because the police seem to have been very hands-off until then.
Okay.
While I wasn't there for some of the nights where some of the stuff did happen, I do have many friends who were shot by pepper balls. They got bruises all over their face and back. Rachel Barnhart, my county legislator, was shot with a pepper ball in the head.
Jeez.
Yeah, right behind the ear, I guess. And a few others too. They thought their being on the front line would change things, and the city's implemented this interesting strategy of putting elders on the front line, whatever that means, just like church leaders and politicians and whatnot. So the protesters and the police won't get out of hand. Still trying to process how I feel about that, but anyhow, so a few of the other nights, you'll see some of that stuff going on. You'll see, the tear gas coming out. You'll see the pepper balls, the pepper spray, and that's why everyone's carrying the umbrellas and the shields and whatnot, because they're trying to protect themselves from that. The police will say, well, people were throwing stuff at them. Last night, the reason things got escalated a bit was because someone threw a water bottle, I guess, at the police, although I don't see why the police need to overreact to that type of thing. That's just me, though. I'm sure someone else you guys can comment and let me know if I should feel differently. There was some commercial fireworks used. It's a little bit unclear what the timeline of that is, though. It seems like the police started escalating with the chemical weapons before the fireworks went off, but it's a little bit unclear. But yeah, you'll see a lot of that, and it's a lot of the police just telling people unlawful assembly, go home. If you don't disperse, they just start shooting into the crowd.
Yeah. Could you imagine for a moment if the crowd responded with the same amount of force that the police do? I mean, because it's kind of this whole situation where the police have this authority to say, you can't be outside anymore, or you can't be here anymore. And when you don't comply, or they feel like you're not going to comply, they can just start, peppering you. And once again, whether justified or not, I'm not sure. I wasn't there. But it's just something I kind of think about as I'm watching these things happen, that the police just have so much authority and so much equipment, and, that what if one day the crowd just turned around and did the same thing, like what that would look like.
Yeah, it just the use of force is really disproportionate to what was necessary. So I don't know. And I know someone's commenting right now saying like it could have been body fluids or acid or something in there. I mean, but it wasn't. I know you don't know, but that's not what was happening here. And the other thing I want to address before we go is like I know many of my conservative friends are sharing 2 videos in particular coming out of Rochester to prove that there's a lot of unrest. And I'll say like at the protest itself, that's most of the atmosphere was pretty chill. Most of the focus was on, getting justice for Daniel Prude and focusing on changing policies that may have caused this, including how police respond to mental health calls, and calling for the mayor to resign, calling for chief of police to resign, stuff like that. But the two videos that you might have seen going around are one is the video is always captioned as like the rioters are taking over roofs and climbing on people's roofs. That wasn't what was happening there. It was actually people who lived in that house who were going out to cheer on the crowd. So if you see that labeled anywhere, that's the reporter who took that video that's being shared all over. He's from City Newspaper, a guy named Gino. He's saying, no, that those are people who are just living in that house and supportive, and that's how they're showing their support. The other one that is a little bit more, I can see why it would be frightening to folks, is the one at Ox and Stone. If for those who don't know, Rochester's a really kind of fancy area in the city where you can go and buy, expensive, overpriced drinks, that type of thing. A few clubs around and whatnot. So a handful of protesters, I won't say a bunch, but a handful went in, and they're like, party's over, things are shutting down, and they came in and they told everyone to leave. And then a few of them knocked glasses off the table, right? But it looks like it kind of looked like they're tearing up the place a bit, but they're mostly going in, and I could understand. I don't really like this tactic. I think it's counterproductive, and you can hear actually some of the organizers in the background trying to get their attention. They're doing this thing, they'll say mic check. When they say that, they're trying to get everyone to focus on the protest organizers to get them to, back on track, right? So you can hear them shouting in the background, mic check, mic check. That's them trying to get everyone's attention. Some folks think they're being jerks. They were going around breaking glasses, scaring everyone, trying to get them out. And the restaurant itself ended up releasing this statement. They said, despite what videos might detect, we lost some glassware last night. You cannot deny the anger and hurt our community is feeling right now. As always, the actions of a few agitators are amplified louder and louder as videos are shared and conclusions are drawn. We now and always stand with those standing against injustice. So that's what they said. The restaurant wasn't all that bothered by it. I don't like that stuff, but that wasn't representative of most of what was going on.
Yeah, well, and ironically, I bet you in an average night, more glassware is broken by wait staff and regular customers. So, yeah, they're probably... Right. Doesn't sound like they're broken up about it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's upsetting and shocking, and I kind of even get a little bit. Not always. I've seen some of the videos of protests going in restaurants and doing stuff where, like, there's another one out of, like, Pittsburgh where someone comes in and, like, chugs this old couple's beer. I'm like, oh, okay, that's aggressive, yeah. But, like, I get, like, going in, making a ruckus, and trying to grab people's attention, being like, no, this is serious. We need to do that. But I don't like property damage. I really don't. I do think that is actual violence in a different way. But keeping your eye on the main issue here, the main issue is Daniel Prude should be attacked. That's it.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us on Radio Free New York. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow.